Hello, my name is Max Lopez, and this is my PPO PPM due diligence and term sheet presentation. Private placement offering, PPO, what is it? It is an offering of securities by a small or growing company to a small group of investors. It is not a public offering, it can't be solicited or advertised, and it's less regulated than a public offering. And it's a lot cheaper way to raise capital. It is also usually issued at a discount by the issuers. And the reason why it's cheaper is because issuers don't need a network of brokers or underwriters to market and make these types of securities. Private placement memorandum, PPM, what is it? It's basically a disclosure document. It contains most of the information needed for an investor to decide whether he wants to invest or not in the PPO. It usually includes the basics such as the company name, what securities they're exactly offering, and the cost. It also includes the risks such as the PPO's dependency on one partner or a small group of investors, or other risks such as competition risk. And it also explains where the proceeds from the PPO will be going, what segments of the company they're looking to improve, and such. Due diligence, what that is basically an analysis of the information given to make a sound an investment decision. And it's just based off of the investor and what the risks they are willing to take and what resources they're willing to give up to make sure they have a sound investment. So the actual analysis is usually done by like attorneys or accountants or other professionals that have a lot of experience in these types of offerings. So for example, what an attorney would do was make sure that the rights that the investor thinks they are getting, they are actually getting in the agreement. And an accountant would, value the offering and make sure there isn't any discrepancies in their value and the company's value. And if there are any discrepancies, you can use that as leverage for negotiation. Term sheet. Term sheet is basically the agreement between the issuer and the offeree. You can kind of think of it as a letter of intent because it's not legally binding, but it's breaking down the deal or the agreement. And usually it states what the offer actually is, the prices of the shares, the names of the investors, and how distributions of the dividends are going to work. And it usually states the rights that are going to be given to the investors once they finalize the agreement. It also has other things such as how voting is going to work and who is going to be on the board. Regulations. So a company can qualify for a PPO if they structure the transaction under Section 4.2 or 3A11 or Regulation D. So a quick summary of each. Section 4.2, you have to keep the number of offerees to a minimum, and you have to limit the offer to insiders such as colleagues or family. And like with all the offers, you have to make sure that you give them enough financial information. You have to give them an open invitation to tour your facilities, and you have to make them aware of any influences that might affect their investment decision. And for Section 3A11, the only difference is compared to 4.2 is that the issuer has within the state can only issue the offer to investors within the same state. So if he issues an investor outside of the state, then he might void his eligibility for that exemption. And for Regulation D, there's kind of three parts to it. For 504, there are no limits on investors, but the investment cap is set at $1 million for a 1 year span. And for 505, there's also no limit on accredited investors, but non-accredited investors has to keep to a limit of around 35. And there's 506 where there's no limit on accredited investors, and the non-accredited investors have to be considered sophisticated. But with this this one, there is no limit on cash investment, so you don't have to worry about that. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching.